Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So it's really Vaikuntha with the chanting, so much chanting of the holy names makes the atmosphere completely like Vaikuntha. This morning I related how this place Guruvayur is known as Bhu Vaikuntha, Vaikuntha on earth. And other temple towns are also, Sri Rangam is also known as that, isn't it? And maybe wherever the Lord is. But if we go on chanting the holy names of Krishna, then any place can become Vaikuntha. Or better than Vaikuntha. How can that be? Can anyone suggest? Naham tishtame Vaikunthe yoginam hridayeshu va yatra gayanti mad bhakta tatra tishtame narada. Krishna says, I don't live in Vaikuntha, nor in the hearts of the yogis, but where my devotees sing my names, then that's where I live. So by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, we're assembled here together to chant the holy names of Krishna. In this dark Kali Yuga, Krishna descends as his holy name. Kali Kale Nama Rupe Krishna Avatar Nam Hoite Hoi Sarva Jagata Anishta. In Kali Yuga, Krishna's avatar is in the form of his name, by which all the universe can be saved. So we are chanting Hare Krishna here by the grace of Srila Prabhupada. Now 2 mornings ago, we had a little class or little katha in the morning. 2 days ago. And the Kinchan Krishna Prabhu raised an important point which deserves discussing more fully. It's, of course, he's not the first to raise it, this point. It is a matter of concern for all followers of Srila Prabhupada. He said that, you see, now almost all of the present members of ISKCON, they haven't had direct personal contact with Srila Prabhupada. At least not in the same way that his direct disciples have. And everyone knows their own guru. And there are big Vyasa Puja celebrations for the various gurus within ISKCON. Whereas Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja, it's celebrated maybe in a more formal manner. Actually, many devotees, because it's many small celebrations, it maybe doesn't come across as such a big festival as the Vyasa Pujas of our present gurus in ISKCON, where many devotees come together. So the concern that Kinchan Krishna Prabhu expressed is that in the minds of the devotees, the importance of Srila Prabhupada may become eclipsed. Advertising Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is a valid concern. In some ways it's difficult to address. Because on one hand, we want to praise all the devotees of Krishna. On the other hand, we don't want that Srila Prabhupada's unique position as the founder Acharya of ISKCON become compromised. Now, in many ways, Srila Prabhupada's position is unique and will always remain so, inasmuch as Srila Prabhupada's Guru Puja is performed in all the temples every day. No one else's. And it's his books which are the basis of this movement. That devotees are encouraged to read his books. The various courses which are offered for Bhakti Shastri within our society are based on Srila Prabhupada's books. And it's Srila Prabhupada's books that are distributed, principally within our movement. And although there are many gurus in our movement, everyone is under Srila Prabhupada. Everyone has that relationship. In other words, each devotee may have their own guru, but everyone has Prabhupada as their param guru or further removed. So, in that way, and the programs we follow, in the temple programs we follow, they're according to Srila Prabhupada's direction. He set it up. Now, one question may arise: why are we concerned to keep Srila Prabhupada's position prominent? The reason for that can be understood by devotees who understand the importance of Srila Prabhupada. If we think that Srila Prabhupada is just one other guru among so many others, that is clearly a mistake. But that there may be the beginnings of such an attitude towards Srila Prabhupada is the cause of concern. And the reason for that may be a lack of direct personal experience with Srila Prabhupada. And for those who do have feelings for and respect and appreciation for their guru, which is natural and desirable, that may seem in some cases to be stronger than their feelings for Srila Prabhupada. But really, appreciation of Srila Prabhupada and of his paramount position within our movement, well, that will come by associating with him. If we read Srila Prabhupada's books and attempt to follow the instructions within them, then we will appreciate what Prabhupada has given us. If we don't do that, then how are we going to appreciate Srila Prabhupada? So, we can appreciate Srila Prabhupada and we should appreciate Srila Prabhupada in the ways that he directed us to do so. Of course, Srila Prabhupada didn't say, you should always think of me and worship me. He said, you should always think of Krishna and worship Krishna. But one of his principal instructions to his followers was to read his books. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to read his books because therein he clearly establishes Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the duty of every living being to unconditionally surrender to Krishna, and the incomparable benefit that every living being will get from doing so. So if one does that, reads Prabhupada's books and follows their instruction, then his feelings for Krishna will awaken. Yeah, there's some propaganda for Srimad Bhagavatam. Is that for Prabhupada's Bhagavatam? It's not a this one. Someone's giving a Bhagavad speech. So that's stated in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Anartha pashamang sakshad bhakti yogavat hosajay lokasyacha. No, that's another verse I'm thinking of. What is that? Bhaktirud padyate pungsa shokamoha bhapayavaha. What's the first line of that? Krishne parama purushe. That's the second line. What's the first line? Anyway, you don't know that? It's a well-known verse. I forgot the... Anyway, the purport is that by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, that one's loving feelings for Krishna will awaken and will extinguish all lamentation, fear and illusion. So one who actually studies Srimad Bhagavatam as given to us by Srila Prabhupada, not by various Mayavadis, then we can experience how our life is transformed from blankness, voidness, darkness, misery, to the reality, the happiness of Krishna consciousness. And then certainly we will be appreciative of Srila Prabhupada for having given us that. So I would say the first condition for, or the first proposition for getting everyone to appreciate Srila Prabhupada is to encourage everyone to read his books. Now there are many other books being written in the Krishna conscious movement. People are coming. How are you going to stop people wandering in front of the camera? What to do? Maybe, is there some way you can put some... You're not worried. Okay. So, well, that's good, because if one reads Srila Prabhupada's books and takes the process of Krishna consciousness, one should become inspired in Krishna consciousness. And a natural result of that is that one wants to share this knowledge and to present it in various ways for the elucidation of others. So such writing of books, that is kirtan, that is a natural function of the soul. But at the same time, we have to keep Srila Prabhupada's books as the basis of our movement. And actually Srila Prabhupada's books, they are the basis of Gauriya Vaishnava understanding. I mean, he commented on those books, which are the basis of Gauriya Vaishnava understanding. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar of Devotion, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. But Srila Prabhupada's books are not just translations. His purports are unique. His commentaries are unique. Previous acharyas commented on various Vaishnav texts. But Srila Prabhupada's are unique in several ways. One way is that they're in English, and of course Bhagavad Gita, some attempt had been there to render Bhagavad Gita in English, but not Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or actually some translation had been there of Chaitanya Charitamrita, but not full as Prabhupada did. Prabhupada's purports are unique in that they're so extensive also, in Srimad Bhagavatam, so extensive, I mean long purports to explain in detail. Srila Prabhupada also presents his purports for modern man, for people who are not Sanskrit scholars, for people who are have no familiarity with this culture. And he addresses issues that no previous acharyas had addressed. At least not to the extent that some issues Prabhupada addressed for the first time, and others in great detail as no others had previously done. Yeah. Such as Darwin's theory of the evolution of the species. Such as the claim that man has gone to the moon. Such as theories of overpopulation. Such as theories of the social liberation of women. So Srila Prabhupada took up many controversial issues. And in pretty much every case, he completely went against everything that is considered normal, proper and correct by modern misguided man. Now, it wasn't that Prabhupada was just deliberately trying to be controversial, but he presented shastric perspectives on the nature of reality and on the various misconceptions that were being propagated. And he justified his stand not only by direct shastric quotes, but also by clear logical analysis. So those who are to be followers of Srila Prabhupada should know what he teaches. And for that purpose, they have to study his books and understand them and bring them into practice in one's own life. Everything becomes very clear by reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And thus our appreciation of Srila Prabhupada increases. And actually, the various gurus in ISKCON, their duty is simply to transmit that same knowledge that Srila Prabhupada gave. And following in his footsteps to address new issues that come up. The scientists are always claiming that they're doing something new. Now, the Indian government is going to go to the moon. Actually, they want to send someone to the moon. Better they all went to the moon, but they want to send someone. Better they should all go. Unfortunately, they're probably heading in the other direction. The moon is a heavenly planet, and so the government members, they're all heading in the other way. There's always something new coming up. Cloning, make a whole pack of stereotyped people. So what is the Krishna conscious perspective on this? Srila Prabhupada's his comments would totally frustrate any academic scholar. Sometimes devotees think, well, how can we say this to scholars, the things that Prabhupada says? But the mundane scholars, they're coming from a different part of the universe. Actually, Prabhupada comes from the spiritual world, so his vision is completely different. Just like overpopulation. I mean, all the scholars agree there's a serious problem. Too many people in the world and we can't feed them all. So my suggestion is, if you think like that, Mr. Atheistic Scholar, go drown yourself and benefit the world. But they have very good solutions. Abortions, sterilizations, programs to promote we two, ours one, and things like that. Hum do hamare do, hum do hamare ek, something like that. And in China, it's illegal to have more than one child. Srila Prabhupada's response was, there's no such thing as overpopulation. If there's one demon, that's overpopulation. So in that sense, there's overpopulation. But the earth can support by the grace of Krishna, who's the supreme controller, the earth can support any number of people and is happy to support any number of devotees. So Prabhupada's solution was, everyone becomes a devotee and then there's no problem. Prabhupada's solution to the petrol problem, we're running out of oil. Prabhupada's solution was, don't bother with oil. No need to run around here and there. You just stay in your village and produce your own food, and then what do you need oil for? So that's the oil problem solved. So these kind of solutions are just beyond the completely out of the range of anything that mundane people can even begin to consider. But actually they make perfect sense. For instance, if we accept that there is God, there is a supreme benevolent controller, which is quite acceptable to any sane person, then if there's 20 billion people on the earth, cannot that supreme controller arrange food for all of them? So it's not at all illogical, actually it makes perfect sense. Everything Srila Prabhupada says makes perfect sense. So this should be the preaching within our movement, to appreciate Srila Prabhupada's gifts in the form of the philosophy he's given us, the way of life he's given us. And not that we don't appreciate our present gurus, but we appreciate them for conveying the teachings of Srila Prabhupada to us. As, for instance, in the old sampradayas of Ramanuja, and Madhva. The Ramanuja and Madhva are much appreciated, their special status. It's not that people don't have their own guru and they don't appreciate them, but the special status of Ramanuja and Madhva are recognized by everyone. This question of the possible eclipsing of Srila Prabhupada and putting undue, it's difficult to word it exactly, but or emphasizing our present gurus to the extent that we don't properly appreciate Srila Prabhupada. Historically, this probably came about as some kind of error that was made shortly after Prabhupada left this world, in which the first 11 disciples of Srila Prabhupada who took up the service of initiating others, they were promoted as being as good as Srila Prabhupada in all respects. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but the idea was that they are as good as Srila Prabhupada, which in one sense is not untrue, but on the other hand, it would have been it's perfect and appropriate praise of one's guru to accept him as a dedicated servant of Srila Prabhupada. Some kind of mood entered our movement. That the thing is that we only knew Prabhupada as a guru. We didn't know anyone else. We hadn't seen any other example. So we naively presumed that every guru must be on the same level as Srila Prabhupada. The glory of being a simple, dedicated follower of Srila Prabhupada, that wasn't considered sufficient. So he created an atmosphere in which it was considered proper to praise one's guru to the ultimate extent, and created somewhat of an artificial atmosphere. And then this syndrome came in of someone, promoting that, our guru is better than your guru. It created somewhat of a neophyte atmosphere in which instead of genuine appreciation coming from the spiritual gifts that one was receiving, it became more like promotion of gurus by almost like advertisement. And we see that even in our movement today, that when someone comes newly, sometimes someone will come to them and say, no, you have to take initiation from my guru. And so then someone else come, no, my guru is better. And in this way, they just create a very neophyte atmosphere, actually. My guru sings very nicely, or my guru smiles very nicely. My guru is the dearest to Prabhupada. My guru is the most merciful. So, to counteract this, education in Guru Tattva is required. All problems arise from ignorance. The root cause of all problems is ignorance. Ignorance of our relationship with Krishna. But even the relationship with Krishna, what are the various facets of that? How to approach Guru, what is the meaning of that? Srila Prabhupada himself was quite strict in all these matters. If the devotees didn't respect him enough, he would let them know, and if they went too far, he would also let them know. On the Vyasa Puja day of Srila Prabhupada once in Japan, the devotees had no idea how to properly celebrate it. So Srila Prabhupada was trying to direct them. They made such a mess of it Prabhupada said, okay, do it tomorrow and I'll tell you what to do, each part, bit by bit. Yet in another instance, when one devotee was praising Srila Prabhupada so much again and again, and Prabhupada was actually getting annoyed with him and say, actually, the center is Krishna, you should center on Krishna. So a proper understanding that we approach the Guru because they help us to come to Krishna. And within ISKCON, we're going to Krishna through Prabhupada. So that requires to understand what are Srila Prabhupada's teachings. In many ways, of course, they're not different from the teachings of any other Gauriya Acharya. But again, there are Srila Prabhupada's manner of presentation is unique. His stress on practicality, of knowing, of understanding where we are and where we need to go, what we need. Srila Prabhupada, he didn't speak very much about very intimate leelas of Krishna, for instance. But he spoke very much on topics which might be considered very basic topics of Krishna consciousness. He spoke a lot about sense control, because he knew that that's what we needed to hear. There's very little point, and in fact it can be harmful to us, if we try to speak about the intimate pastimes of Krishna when we haven't even controlled our mind or senses. And Srila Prabhupada, he, while directing us toward Krishna in the spiritual world, he was very much aware of what was going on in this world. His preaching was very much on the line of Chandra Shakanyai, the example of the moon and the tree branch. If we have to see the moon, the idea is that if we have to see the moon, but we are unfamiliar with the moon, the child is being pointed out, this is the moon. The child is familiar with the tree in the courtyard of the home. So it's pointed out, you see the branch of the tree? Well, just that globe glowing above that is called the moon. So like that, Krishna, we have to look for Krishna. But Krishna, from us, we are separated from Krishna by a great distance by our material conditioning. We feel very close to this material world. So Srila Prabhupada would discuss matters of this material world and take our attention to Krishna. Like that example, overpopulation. The problem comes when we forget Krishna. When we remember Krishna, if we forget Krishna, then even a small population in the world, there won't be enough food for everyone. But if we serve Krishna, then the earth will very gladly give far, far more food than we can imagine. In the modern world, they're just trying to squeeze out nature by throwing in chemicals into the soil, torturing nature in various ways, just to try to squeeze out some food. And nature is responding by just closing off the supply. But if we respect Mother Nature, Mother Earth, as a representative of Krishna and worship Krishna, then she will be happy to give any amount of food. What's that verse? Kamam dadarsha parjanya, what's that? You should know that one. That during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, then the rain would fall just according to need. The cows would give so much milk. I saw on our farm in Czech Republic, there was one cow who never gave birth to a calf, but she was always giving so much milk. Tell the scientists, they won't believe you. Very affectionate cow. When we go in the field, there were cows and horses, and they'd all come looking for some stroking and some affection like that. That's what they expected to get. But most domestic animals nowadays, if you go toward them, they'll be frightened because people mistreat them and beat them, kick them. They just think how we can squeeze out as much milk as we can to get some money, that's all. Inject some hormones, and in this way they torture the animals to try to get more out of them. It's a very demoniac society. So, Srila Prabhupada, he gave a direction to live a very simple life depending on Krishna. And it requires faith in Srila Prabhupada and Krishna to take that up. So let us go on with faith in Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada had that faith that if you serve Krishna, then Krishna will give everything. You don't have to worry. Kimalabhya Bhagavati Prasanne Sri Niketana. What Akrura says, isn't it? Akrura says that what is there that a devotee of Bhagavan cannot get? He is the abode of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. And so if he's pleased, then what is there that a devotee cannot get? So a devotee with that faith, he doesn't worry so much. Let me serve Krishna, then Krishna will look after me. Srila Prabhupada himself exemplified that faith. He went to America. Who was his friend? Only Krishna. To go like that, it's not possible without complete faith in Krishna. Why on earth should he go in the first place anyway? He definitely wasn't going for sightseeing. That you can see from what he did after he arrived. Out of all the many things he could have brought from India, he brought his books. So again, we can increase the depth of our appreciation for Srila Prabhupada by hearing about him. Apart from reading his books, there are many books about Srila Prabhupada. Many devotees have written their memories of how Srila Prabhupada affected their lives. So this all helps to increase our appreciation for Srila Prabhupada. And actually, the amount of literature about Srila Prabhupada, it's growing all the time. And actually, even if you write biographies of Srila Prabhupada's contemporaries or some of Srila Prabhupada's prominent disciples, but you just won't get so much. Because Prabhupada did so much for Krishna, so there's so much to write about him. Because others, they didn't do so much. It's not to denigrate others, but it's just a fact. And Srila Prabhupada affected people by his personal interaction so much that when we read about Srila Prabhupada, and so many devotees have felt inspired to write their memories about him. And there may be so many devotees, but the way Prabhupada affected people is so many people is unique. And it wasn't at all sentimental. It was all substantial. We find that many of the memories of Prabhupada, it's not that it wasn't that he was always praising people like that. According to modern psychological theory, you should always encourage people and always smile at them and be nice with them and this and that. But Srila Prabhupada wasn't always like that at all. He was often strong with others, reprimanded them like this. But that it was always to direct people toward Krishna. And if he was strong, it was to cut out the anarthas by which people were not focusing clearly on surrendering to Krishna. As Shruta Kirti Prabhu, one of Srila Prabhupada's personal servants, he narrated, he said that when Srila Prabhupada shouted at you, it wasn't pleasant, you didn't feel good, just the opposite. But Shruta Kirti said that I would do anything now to get that opportunity again. So there are some thoughts from my side about the importance of keeping Srila Prabhupada in the center of our movement. Oh, there's something else important I should say, that sometimes there are some theories around that we have to distribute other books and not Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada's books are too difficult, people can't understand them, so we have to write some other books. Now there may be some truth in this in some limited sense. Just like, for instance, Srila Prabhupada wanted his scientifically trained disciples to write books addressed to scientists, written in scientific terms, to bring scientists to the point of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Because scientists in general, they're not at all interested in reading Prabhupada's books, which they see as something of absolutely no interest to them whatsoever. So there may be some grounds, some limited grounds, for presenting other kinds of books. But in general, for mass distribution, we give emphasis to Prabhupada's books. Not that other books cannot be distributed, but the emphasis should always be on Prabhupada's books. Especially this Bhagavad Gita as it is, all over the world, that seems to be the most effective in bringing people to Krishna consciousness. Even though it is quite a difficult book. Bhagavad Gita is the introduction to spiritual knowledge, but it's not that easy. But nevertheless, all over the world, more than any other book, that is effective in bringing people to Krishna consciousness. Yeah, so does anyone else have any thoughts or questions? Any thoughts on this subject or questions, or want to raise any more points for discussing? It is important, definitely, that we have to understand Prabhupada's position and keep him in the center of our movement. So, as I've many times said, please read Srila Prabhupada's books. Now we have these DVDs, complete collection of Prabhupada's lectures, conversations. If you understand English, take that also. Yeah, is there another mic?
Another suggestion that some devotees gave, and I also felt, is that if Srila Prabhupada's lectures in English can also be translated.
Prabhupada's lectures in English can be translated into other languages. That was done quite a few years ago in Russian, actually. Way ahead of anyone else. Devotees in Russia you can hear Prabhupada's voice, but overlaid is the Russian translation.
Or we can have like what we have now here, Tamil. So
one line, that's also possible. Yeah, do it. There's that book of Sahadev Prabhu about the oil crisis, and almost every page there's a quote from Prabhupada. Now Sahadev Prabhu gave this book to the ex-chief minister of Andhra, Y.R. Reddy, Y.S.R. Reddy. Yeah. So he was so impressed by this book, he arranged for Sahadev Prabhu to get an honorary PhD. And he asked Sahadev, who is this Swami Prabhupada? Is he an oil engineer? He has so much insight, so much knowledge. So Sahadev Prabhu, taking inspiration from Prabhupada's quotes, he got a bunch of information from the internet, put it together systematically, and made actually a very impressive book. So on all these issues, Prabhupada's given teachings on cow protections and other things Sahadev Prabhu wrote on, overpopulation, village life, simple life, so many things Prabhupada taught, which can all be investigated more presented in a systematic way. And in this way, that's another way to present the glories of Srila Prabhupada, that in seed form, he gave us so many realizations to practically solve the problems of modern life. We make a great mistake if we just confine this movement to being some kind of conventional religious movement, which has, it's relatively easy, especially in this country, to build temples and invite people and go on with life. But what is the message that we have to give? What is the message that Prabhupada gave? Recently, one of my godbrothers commented that people in general don't see ISKCON as an intellectual movement. They think of this art of living. They think that's very intellectual. I don't know why, but that's considered very suitable for highly educated people. And people in general in India, I'm talking about, he was talking about, they think ISKCON builds big temples and has big festivals and all the rich people go there and that's it. So although in some ways that's considered a success and our movement seen as very successful in India, if that's the general perception, I would say in a large sense our movement has failed in India. If people think our movement is just for rich people and you just go to a big temple and take darshan and give some donation, then they have no idea what Prabhupada wanted this movement to do. People should know that our movement and our temples are for the rich people, for the poor people, not just for Hindus, but for everyone, for Muslims, Christians, atheists. Everyone should come, because Krishna is the father of everyone. If people think it's just for one small group of people, then we are not presenting Prabhupada's message. Yeah, anything else? We should bring the Muslims, Christians, everyone, bring them in. We shouldn't think that we're Hindus, they're different. No, we're all part and parcel of Krishna. I'll speak more about that tomorrow. You'll be surprised, maybe, tomorrow morning we're having a presentation by a mundane writer. Mundane in the sense that he's not Krishna conscious. That's the meaning of mundane. But he's concerned in the right things, but for the wrong reasons. Anyway, he'll speak in the morning and then I'll give commentary on it afterwards. Yeah, anything else about this? Can you hear that?
We say our movement is based on Shravana and Kirtana, and we also insist on reading the books. And what is the difference between reading the books and hearing?
Well, obviously it's similar or a different manifestation of the same function. Both are reading and hearing are both for transmission and reception of spiritual knowledge. Both have their specific functions. Generally, in the Vedic culture, one learns by hearing from the Guru. But what the Guru speaks is based on Shastra. And Swadhyay, or personal study of Shastra, is also an essential function. So reading the Shastra, that gives the basic authoritative presentation of that knowledge. When we hear the same knowledge from a devotee, that devotee will present the same knowledge, but in spoken form, he may, for instance, choose some particular angle or topic which he feels is of particular relevance to the hearers, just like today I spoke on a topic like that. Or may, or within a topic, may emphasize some particular aspect of it, or may present that knowledge in a manner which is suitable for the hearers to absorb that knowledge.
Salam.
So in written form gives the authoritative presentation, which is the basis of all the knowledge that we are to receive. And in spoken form, takes that knowledge, presents it, examines it in different ways, relevant to the needs of the hearers. So both are required. Anything else? Anything from our mothers? Any questions?
Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj, in Prabhupada's times, I heard that devotees were very, very dynamic, very more surrendered.
Devotees were more dynamic and surrendered. In some cases, not everyone.
Generally, in ISKCON, the mood was...
Generally, yeah, you could say that. You could say that, yeah. Although a lot more books are being distributed here in India now than they were at that time. Here in India, at least, yeah. But I mean, it wasn't that all of Prabhupada's disciples were like completely surrendered or any such thing. By no means. And a lot of the enthusiasm, maybe that was, of course you could say this is speculation, but maybe that was a transformation of youthful energy, because if it didn't last, it means it wasn't very strongly situated on the spiritual platform. So that could be postulated also.
It was also due to Srila Prabhupada's personal
Srila Prabhupada's personal presence, yeah. The personal presence, and there was a strong sense of mission. Devotees that most of Srila Prabhupada's followers came out of a very black kind of background, and their life changed around, so naturally they were feeling very enthusiastic, and there was a very strong sense of mission. We had a feeling we're going to change the world. How can we do that? Well, it can't artificially be brought in. If devotees, if they feel, how will they feel inspired? Ultimately, that can be, to sustain enthusiasm, a strong spiritual basis is required. Otherwise, you can try and get people jacked up by some kind of competition, which Prabhupada also did, or telling them the world's going to end 21st of May, right? Judgment Day. You all heard of that? It's on the internet. 21st of May, Judgment Day. Jesus is coming. So that might get some Christians all excited. But ultimately, the enthusiasm to dedicate oneself and push oneself throughout life will come from spiritual understanding and surrender. So Prabhupada was able to invoke that. But there's no artificial substitute for spiritual purity. Each one of us has to become spiritually pure, then we can inspire others. Okay, one more question and I'll finish.
Now, the scientists have invented aeroplanes, cell phones, like etc., with their scientific knowledge. Why we could not do so with the Vedic knowledge?
That was a better knowledge. First thing, people didn't travel unless they had to. Human life is meant for God realization. Unnecessary travel is simply a diversion and a disturbance. But there were airplanes also. That very word Vimana is a Sanskrit word. We find that repeatedly in the Puranas, Ramayana, Pushpak Vimana. Or people could just travel by, yogis can travel by, siddhas can travel by yoga shakti, mystic power. And cell phone, you think that's an advantage? Maybe in this modern complex society it's a necessity to have one, but it's a disturbance. Is modern society really so advantageous? People are just increasing. For all the ability to move around here and there and have more communication, people are becoming more and more animalistic. So what's the benefit? Alright, I'll finish there for now. We have this set of DVDs of Prabhupada. Lectures, you can take that. There's also my book, Jai Srila Prabhupada. If you read that, that will increase your appreciation of Srila Prabhupada. Do you have it in Tamil? It's out of stock, huh? There are a few copies of my book, My Memories of Srila Prabhupada. You can also read that.